Welcome to the Source Podcast, all things working dogs. I am Brandon, going to be the host today, joined with Keely. So we're gonna get into some myths and some facts potentially, or old wives' tales, if you will. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think this was actually my idea. I'm glad Maya took my advice. I guess one of the myths that is popular is that working dogs are always working. Is that right? Is that how that's supposed to be worded? That working dogs are always working? Or is it just dogs are always working?
I feel like it's working down. Yeah.
You think?
You now big dog. With what they're already in their
Okay. I mean, in theory, depending on what they're doing, you know, a seeing eye dog is probably always working until their owner goes to sleep.
well, they might even be working while they're asleep. What if something happens while they're asleep?
Right.
Dog depend.
Dogs gotta know. So working dogs are always working. Keely, you wanna touch that one?
My feeling is yes and no. Obviously when they're in their kennel, not working.
Right. From a literal standpoint. I got
I
it.
feel like Simon's always told us that when he lets his dog out, his dog's always working in pattern.
Yep.
So in my eyes, I feel like that aspect they are kind of always wanting and trying to work.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like they are to an extent.
I would agree. I think that if you have a working dog and it's time to relax, the dog is relaxing. But also at the same time, if you have a dog that you just leave loose in your house, it's going to find things for itself to do. And I think in that aspect, it could be considered always working. It's always looking for something to do. I feel like a lot of these dogs need a purpose. And if we don't give them a purpose, they can find their own. So that can always just kind of be one of those things that they're always working. It just depends on the dog specifically. If you look at pets, I mean, if a pet doesn't know what work is it going to work?
So, I mean, my dog is always working. If you want to put it like that, she's always find something to chew on.
Right. And so like,
Besides her actual toy.
what? Right. And so like, and you have trained dogs are the worst. So I guess in the working world, like if you're not giving your dog something to do and you have one of those working breeds, you could definitely find yourself in a situation where it's going to find itself something to do. And that would, I guess we can classify that as always working, because it doesn't necessarily have a purpose, but the dog's brain is going, which in my head is kind of working. And I guess that kind of would lead into our next topic where we see it a lot of times where clients a lot of times will come in and say, oh, my dog would be a great service dog, or my dog would be a great working dog because it always sniffs all over the place. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that could be the case. It could just be investigating things. And I don't know that we would classify that as working, but that does lead into the next top or the next question. Any dog can be a working dog or a service.
As far as like detection work and fight work and actually having drive and prey drive like that, I would say no, not all dogs have that ability. But like with emotional support dogs, stuff like that, I mean, yeah, any dog could probably be a emotional support dog.
Yeah. And getting into like all the emotional support dogs is kind of there's a lot of gray area, if you will. I think there's some requirements that the ADA has on that, like they can't be aggressive towards humans or other dogs, things like that. We're looking for those drives. We're looking for all of those uh key indicators that tell us that a dog can be a working dog or a service dog. I don't think that everybody's Chihuahua can be a working dog.
Or everybody's German Shepherd.
Right,
Like,
exactly. Yeah,
does not care to find a ball at all.
right. And so if you've got dog, even, there's breed standards that come with Belgian Malinois, German Shepherds, that everybody sees them and they think police dog and working dog. Some of those dogs just don't have the drives to be a working dog. So ultimately, not every dog can be a working dog, in the sense of what we do. But some dogs can be emotional support dogs, even if they're not a working dog, or a drug detection or tracking or whatever.
Very good. He wants them before if I'm emotionally stressed. If you've ever been bulky,
Emotional distress.
can you see that dog get it? Just over. You took it over.
How many times has that happened, Keely? Don't answer that, Philip Gordon.
Yeah.
Another good point to that is only pointy-eared dogs can be working dogs. I don't know where that myth came from or why that would be a myth. Pointy-eared dogs are not the only dogs that we use for service animals, or working dogs. Sorry, pointy-eared dogs are not the only dogs that we use for working dogs. Good example of that is we use German short-haired pointers, which are a floppy ear. We use labs, springers. I've seen bloodhounds. Bloodhounds are great tracking dogs, and they've got the biggest, floppiest ears you've ever seen. They're so cute. You just want to squeeze their face. Giant schnauzers. Those are being used a lot right now for bite work. I've seen, and that's freaking awesome. They're huge dogs. They've got a great temperament most of the time, and so they can be used for working dogs as well.
We just had Cody come through. He's flop-eared.
Cody just came through as an
Oh.
explosives detection dog.
Nicest explosive detection dogs I've seen.
Yeah, worked really well. It doesn't have to do with necessarily the breed. It's more along the lines of we mentioned this before, does the dog have the drives that we are looking for? Hunt drive, prey drive. Can we get some defense out of the dog? Sum that question up. Not only pointy-eared dogs are working dog.
Why tentatively physically stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you see the police. Sorry, go ahead.
Patrol dogs.
Yeah.
I think it's like a stereotype kind of thing. Yeah. You just see a pointer dog, you're like, oh, that's a working dog.
Keely, have you heard any myth in the working dog world?
That all working dogs are aggressive.
There has to be a level of defense and a level of aggression. And I use that term loosely because it's not necessarily aggression. It's more of a defense drive that we're looking for these dogs, for them to be a patrol dog. And once again, I mean, most of our floppy-eareds are like kind of space cadets where they just want attention and they enjoy the attention and have absolutely no desire to be aggressive towards anything or anybody. And a lot of these questions are dependent. Because, I mean, realistically, working dogs can, not all working dogs are aggressive. Even bite dogs, there are some of the sweetest bite dogs in the world. Right. It's all controlled and it's in controlled environments. What is going on around that dog that could lead to that quote aggression? But not every working dog is going to be aggressive.
And if you want to go off of the stereotype about 20 years, about them being working dogs and them being aggressive, I met some of the nicest 20-year working dogs in my life. They were full service patrol dogs, and you could just go up and give them a hug. And I mean, they didn't do it; they just wanted love.
Right. And so, like, to say that all working dogs are aggressive, we're making a very broad statement that's not necessarily true. Female dogs make bad working dogs.
Yeah, no, I disagree completely. I don't think the gender has anything to do with it. I know plenty of female working dogs that have done great.
There are female bite dogs. There are female detection and tracking dogs that do great at their job. Female dogs can be working dogs. Keely mentioned a good point about them being in heat. We have found that can affect, if there is a female dog in heat around a male dog, it can affect the male dog working, but not necessarily going to affect the female dogs. So female dogs, in my opinion, can be just as good working dogs as male dogs.
I actually know a lot of handlers that
Prefer female, so do I.
I have no idea. I think the male just want to mark their. It just irritates their soul.
Segueing into our next myth, patrol dogs are trained to bite and kill. What would you say?
I would say that that's a tough one for me. I would say their intent is to kill you. That's their differentiate. Train target.
So we teach patrol dogs for it to be a game. And so in the dog's head, the dog is thinking of it as this is a game. I get to chase. I get to satisfy some of those drives. I get to satisfy the ball drive, if you will, or the chase drive, the prey drive, the hunt drive, and then I get a bite, and it's a game. It's a game for our dogs when we train them.
In the author, your friend.
On something positive, right? Because we're a positive only facility. And so biting is a positive thing for our dogs. We do not train patrol dogs to bite somebody in an area that's going to kill them. We train our patrol dogs to bite in an area that's one given to them, but also it's more of an apprehension tool. So it's not necessarily in order for the dog to kill anybody. That it's an apprehension tool that we use. It's not to try and kill anybody. Uh, Now I can't speak to what other people are training their dogs to do. I have no idea. All right, legitimately trained patrol dogs are trained to bite an area in order to apprehend a suspect. That is the truth in the way that we train dogs.
What do you think about titanium teeth implant to increase their bite depth?
That I've never seen a dog with titanium tooth. The only time that I've heard of them using titaniums is when a dog breaks his canine doing bite lick. And that's the only time, or apprehending a suspect, the dog breaks his tooth on a bone or something along those lines. That's the only time I've heard of them replacing them with titanium.
I mean, if they have broken canine, then it not be they'll get broken.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, it's just like with humans and having cavities or a broken or missing tooth. There can be a lot of pain associated with that, a lot of discomfort when biting. So, and then not to mention infections and all of those things that can happen. And so replacing that canine with a titanium tooth after it has already been broken or dislodged, that can be used. They can be used in that. Personal protection dogs are trained to bite people when they want. Does that mean when they want to bite a person or when the handler wants to bite, want them to bite?
So this is all I've run and run.
Okay.
All the ability. I would presume it means when the dog wants to bite.
Yeah. So personal protection dogs trained at Custom Canine Unlimited are trained to bite either on command or a perceived threat.
But if I just come up and figure hand, that not bite me.
A good trained personal protection dog should have no issues with you walking up to me and shaking my hand.
If I shove you, it's a different story.
Now, if you shove me and the dog perceives that as a threat, there's a good chance you get bit. Please don't do that in front of me.
Not a chance. I'm good. I don't want to take her stories.
Speaking of personal protection dogs, handlers view their working dogs as gear or equipment.
I think this was one that we learned a couple of times.
Uh, from a handler's standpoint, a working dog is a tool. It is an asset. But I do not know a handler that does not love their dog. Yeah. I mean, I don't know a handler that's not emotionally attached to their dog. A lot of these guys, they are working dogs, but they're still part of the family. They're still part of the team, and they view them as a partner more than a tool. Well, more than a piece of equipment. They're not just some piece of equipment they can throw by the wayside. When these dogs retire, 9 times out of 10, they retire to the handler that has last had them. And so specifically if it's owned by the department. And so the majority of these handlers view their canine companions as a partner.
I know a lot where they would put their dog first too.
Yep.
Like in any situation, they would put their dog first, and then they would never even put their dog in a situation where something happened to it either.
If your dog were to pee in the house, would you rub your dog's nose in it?
No, he's like so cool and useless and doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you trying to get to the can't use the bathroom?
Think about a dog's attention span equivalent to like a 2-year-old. And so if that dog peed in the house an hour ago and you go over there and rub that dog's nose in it, that's my pee. Why are you rubbing my nose in it? So it's like all you're doing is what ends up happening is you're marking a behavior, which is what the owners think they're doing. They're marking a bad behavior, which is the dog urinating in their home, urinating in the places they're not supposed to urinate. But what's really happening is now that dog is associating anytime my owner walks over to me and has this angry look on his face, he's going to grab my nose and rub it and pee. Because all dogs associate is within like most 2 seconds, right before what happened. People will argue and say, well, if I catch my dog doing it and then rub his nose in it, once again, why are you rubbing your dog's nose in it? Take your dog out to the bathroom.
Yeah.
If you consistently have a routine to where you're taking your dog out, first of all, kennel train your gosh darn dogs. And then when you're kennel training your dogs, have a routine. Your dog goes out after it eats. In 20 minutes, 40 minutes at most, take your dog to the bathroom. Your dog's in there sucking water down, take it to the bathroom.
The rule is for every month of age is every hour that they can be left in their crate or without using the bathroom. So if they're 6 months old, they can go to the bathroom. Now, if they apply to everything, you should probably let them out for 6 hours. But that is pretty much the standard that we kind of go by.
Keely is going to be doing a puppy training class. If you guys are interested, that will be offered on Saturdays. We'll put the
Starts on the 29th.
We'll put the description for all of that, how to sign up in the description of the podcast, so that you guys can sign up for that. It's going to be an awesome opportunity to learn a little bit more about training puppies specifically.
Now kind of more into the crate. You know, the myth or that now saving people disagree on why crate training good.
I see so many posts about people being like, I never put my dog in a crate and he's just fine. Like, you shouldn't leave your dog in a crate when you're at work, like this and that. I completely disagree with it. Feel like the crate is somewhere for your dog to relax. It should be a happy place for your dog. They should enjoy being in their crate. I really don't see a problem with leaving your dog in a kennel. I genuinely don't know what it is with crates that people associate it with such a negative.
A crate is should always be a positive thing. A lot of people punish their dog, go to your crate. Well, now you're associating that the negative thing because the dog remembers within that 2 seconds you yell at your dog and then now it's in its crate. Now the crate is a bad thing. Keely had mentioned it. Crate is a safe space for your dog. The crate should be a positive thing for your dog. It's a place for, just like humans, we need some time alone to decompress. It's a great opportunity for your dog to decompress. It's a great opportunity to also help prevent bloat and things like that, so that your dog doesn't get ill and now you've got a $7,000 surgery because you decided to play with your dog right after slurp down a bunch of water. Or the other side of that, you leave your dog in your house, destroys your couch cushion, swallowed half of the fabric that's on your couch cushion, and now it's backed up. It has a blockage in its stomach or intestines. It's not, people think about it as a negative thing when realistically it needs to be, one, a positive thing, but also think about it as it's keeping your dog safe. We can't read a dog's mind. You may have the best dog in the world, so you say, and you leave your dog alone. It destroys whatever it's going to destroy, eat your clothes, They like our odor. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel, loved, if you will. And they eat your clothes, and now we've got a problem. And so if we leave a dog alone to its own devices, it's going to find something for it. Crate training should always be a part of your routine when training a dog. Making it a positive thing. I've got a client right now who says, "Oh, I can't leave my dog alone because it'll destroy stuff." Well, have you started crate training your dog? No, I haven't. Well, you need to start crate training your dog so that you can leave your dog alone so that it doesn't destroy your house.
Yeah, well, and then I'm working on. Well, I guess very like pull the trunk button and you have
The moral of the story is train your dog, take your dog to the bathroom, stop rubbing the dog's nose, its own urine and defecation.
Please.
It does not work. It doesn't do anything. It just associates you with poop and a bad experience.
Yeah.
It's almost like if your dog bites you, bite it back.
I just want to see the logic behind it.
Yeah.
In what world would I ever put my mouth on my dog? Other than to give it kisses.
I see women or somebody just wanted to and common living in urban and from like that it's like
What would you say? I told you that dogs can smell fear.
I don't think it's just smell. Really.
Okay.
I don't know how to go about that because like dogs can smell like blood pressure. Like if your blood pressure goes up, a dog can sense that. Like pheromones and stuff like that. But I don't really know if they can smell fear. I know that like if you're handling the dog and you get anxious, then the dog can sense that because they say your emotions travel down lead. But as far as them being able to smell it, I don't think so.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I don't necessarily know that it's a smell. I believe that they can sense fear. And it's probably like you were saying, traveling down the leash or something along those lines. Body language, body posture, those kind of things, blood pressure, something along those lines. Which would then kind of lead into
His tail is wagging, so it must be happy. We're talking about body language.
we have the talk so time so they're having pretty much
a dog tail's wagging when it's chasing prey too.
Or when it's searching for drugs. Or explosives.
So maybe those are happy experiences for the dogs, and it's a happy dog because it's chasing.
well also right themselves used to call it.
Yeah.
Also, the wag.
There's different tail wags.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say. Like
Like
the wag is different
you can have a stiff tail
and wagging back
up
and forth.
wagging back and forth, but that is a sign of aggression.
And when the dog's tail is down, kind of tucked under, but it's still wagging back and forth,
It's fearful.
could be fearful.
It could be a fear biter.
But also, what if a dog doesn't have a tail?
They still wag.
Their little butt
They
wag.
go that way.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that also television is good socialization. And on that same note, socializing your dog means it should be a dog part and doors.
No, 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 and no.
Please stop taking your dogs to dog parks.
Please.
They are the most
Sick.
infected, disease-ridden place on the face of dog community earth.
And they're extremely toxic.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You got all these dogs running around, no leash, owners on their phone, and
Probably no recall.
probably no recall, no obedience, and you've got this dog that's just wandering around, doing whatever it wants, sniffing, picking up, doing whatever it wants, and not even being properly socialized. If you're going to socialize your dog with other dogs, it should be in a controlled environment. It should be
Positive control.
positive control of both dogs. And in the working dog community, we don't want our dogs necessarily aggressive towards other dogs. So there is a socialization that we do there. But as far as just letting our dogs play with each other, there is kind of a behavior that's known as aliomatic behavior. Aliomatic behavior can create bad habits because one dog's doing something, another dog is going to pick that bad habit up. And so what will happen in those instances is you're trying to, I just talked to a client about this today. When you're working with your dog, you need to be alone with that dog, working with them. Dogs are pack animals. When they get around other dogs, they're going to act as if they are part of a pack. There's a hierarchy. There's a pecking order, if you will. And so there still needs to be some socialization that happens. And, especially with pets and things like that, you want your dog to be social with other dogs. I get that, especially if you've got more than one dog. But at the same time, it's not necessarily always a good thing.
And then to even kind of pinpoint off of that, a lot of people will think that introducing their dogs to like a lot of people or bringing them into like big crowds, even like, oh, my dog is around all these people, like I'm socializing them, but that could also overstimulate them. It could be a bad experience if you're not making it positive enough. They get overwhelmed, and they might even come to a point to where they're actually scared of being around a large crowd of people, and they get really anxious because you didn't do it in phases. You just threw them into the world.
Those are aspects that can be trained out in some instances. But that can go into over socializing your dog. That can go into not socializing your dog enough. And so when you have one extreme or the other, can build what's known as an aggressive dog based off of those experiences.
No, one that we hear a lot is if you don't like dog to reach the start, just put him in. Or take the food away. Take him away because you want them to really
And we'll touch on both of those together or separately. Stop putting your hand in your dog's food. Who on earth thought that was a good idea? Hey, this dog has teeth that are bigger than mine and
A jaw that is strong.
a jaw that is stronger than mine. And I'm going to put my hand in his food just to show them that it's okay if he doesn't need to bite it. Do you want people putting their hands in your food while you're eating at the dinner table? No, let your dog. Do you want your dog putting his paw in your food while you're eating? No, I would assume not. So, some people might. But at the same time, so with that being said, let your dog eat in peace. Like, it doesn't need you to put your hands in its food for you to show them that it's not okay to be aggressive. We can work through those issues when there is food aggression, things like that. But also, if your dog is food aggressive, there's probably a reason. Resource guarding, things like that, that is not so much, it's not going to be fixed with you putting your hand in your dog's food. It may worsen it, yep. But also people feed their dogs together and then they end up with a dog fight. People do forget that they're animals and that we can't verbally, like with words, communicate to them. Words don't have meaning unless we give them meaning to them.
Yes.
And so those kind of things can just happen. You can have the nicest dog in the world. One day she decides that she's tired of your bullshit and turns around and bites.
Well, even though your dog never bad food in our dog or then they could react and we're really happy we're attracted to them.
Yeah. So you had mentioned being the alpha with your dog.
Come. That's theory. Make sure your dominant your dominant one walk down the year versus your dominant ego for your dominant your alpha one.
Some of those things just don't.
Yeah, like eating before
Yeah,
your dog
like-
eats. Like, I don't see how that gives any behavior. Like, hey man, I'm eating for you. Look at
Yeah.
that. How do you feel?
Some of that stuff's kind of weird, right? But some of these dogs, if you try to be an alpha with them or against them, they think it's a fight. And so you end up with a dog that is you're just gonna butt heads with, because now, okay, you're gonna impose your will. The dog thinks I'm more alpha than you. I'm gonna impose my will. We've seen it before. We're just simply outing a dog of a toy or a ball or something along those lines, where dog think that every time he's gonna get outed, it's gonna be a fun. And so it builds that dog up. It starts to amp that dog up because you were trying to be the quote alpha, and the dog's there to prove you wrong. Once again, it goes like putting your hand in the dog's bowl because you're the alpha and your dog's not going to bite you.
Please just grab a handful there.
Yeah.
Breakers. The one alpha theory is dog has quality.
There's a level of respect that has to be built, and it's not necessarily so much of an alpha. Think about it as a relationship with a significant other. There's a give and there's a take. You can't always just push without some pushback. So you got to build respect between you and your canine partner, your significant other. There's always got to be some kind of respect built, mutual agreements that need to happen. There are times when you can be a little more assertive, a little more alpha, if you will. But then there are also times, like sticking your hand in your dog's bowl, where being an alpha is useless, and it's not going to get you anywhere except for potentially big. And then there's also dogs that have had somebody push them and try and impose their will. We see it with different fear biters and aggressive dogs, where they've tried to impose their will on this dog, and something as simple as toning it down, backing off, and just giving the dog the out command in a whisper instead of a harsher correction will actually be of more benefit than trying to physically fight the dog. One of the big things that we hear all the time, especially with our pet owners, is spaying or neutering your dog will fix all of your problems.
Actually went through this recently with a family member. They have a Great Dane lab mix, and he's a crackhead of a dog, needs some training. But they told me we're actually gonna get him neutered next week. I think it's really gonna tone down like a lot of his behavior issues. And in my head, I'm just like, good luck with that, because it's not really gonna do much for the dog. The dog's not really gonna change that drastically to where their behavior problems are just gone.
Keep in mind, we're not vets. We don't claim to be vets. But in the past, dogs that have been neutered continue the same behaviors.
He's the same.
Right. So we did end up getting neutered in the exact same way. Because these behaviors are learned. If you train your dogs from a young age to act appropriately, socialize them properly, get some basic obedience, training, all of those things, that's what's going to eliminate most of the behavior. From my understanding, vets now are starting to wait to neuter dogs until they're 2. I've seen 1.5 years, 2 years old, somewhere in there. The breed.
But I want to say their reasoning is just for growth. I don't even think it's
Right. Testosterone is already developed in that dog. The dog's behaviors are already learned. Taking the dog's testicles away is not going to fix learned behaviors. It's going to continue until you start training the dog. Your dog marking and things like that are not going to be fixed. Well, with that being said, marking is actually, so when a dog urinates to relieve itself. But when a dog is urinating on things to mark its territory, there's some science based on the odor, and it's actually not a territorial thing as much as it is a communication. Yeah. So if a dog is, you take your dog on a walk, he pees on something. Just a quick little tinkle, it's leaving an odor there to communicate to the other dogs that pass by. That's all it is. There was a study done where dogs were left in, multiple dogs were left in a run together, and they actually found that when they're left together in a larger environment like that, they're less likely to mark because communication can be from one dog to another. But when dogs are left alone, they're more likely to mark for the next dog. Hey, whatever the communication is between dogs, like I said, we can't talk to dogs before, but whatever the communication is between dogs that goes on, it's an opportunity for them to talk to whatever dog has been there, whatever dog's going to come back, whatever that looks like.
That kind of makes me curious of what it actually is, because we'll have two dogs down on the ground and they're just like back and forth mark the same spot. It just makes me curious what it actually means.
That is what we call a pissing match. No pun intended. As always, if you've got any questions, feel free to comment. If you do not already, please like and subscribe. Thank you for joining the Source Podcast. Enjoy your night.